Hey everybody. My name's Nico Masucci. I'm going to be your instructor for professional orientation. Figured I'd just tell you a little bit about me real quick, and then we could also briefly skim the syllabus. We're going to meet from 7 to 9 tomorrow. If you want, it's 7 to 8 is really when I was going to maybe talk with people, ask some questions, just like a general meet and greet. Uh, as far as the purpose of it. It's totally optional. So I want to be clear. I hope I don't get any like desperation emails. If I do, that's fine. But I just hope I'm clear here. You do not have to come to that. But that's why I'm going to review the syllabus now a little bit, just so that um, if anybody has any questions, they're not like waiting on that video to open up. So a little bit about me. I am still finishing up my PhD. It's really a variable length. It just depends on when certain things get done. My topic for my dissertation is doctoral students who supervise school counseling students, but when their background is a different specialty. So, clinical mental health counseling specifically, when doctoral students with that background supervise school counseling supervisees, trying to get some qualitative information about their counselor identity development. So, how they're developing as a supervisor and handling that challenge of trying to supervise somebody with a slightly different specialty. Interesting enough, we'll talk about identity a lot in this course. I mean, even within the first chapter. So it's definitely relevant. Um, Another thing about me, I did just get married recently. So that's cool on August 1st. So can probably talk with you all about that. I mean, I'm sure some of you are married, and maybe some of you aren't, but there's a lot of different things that we could talk about that are really be cool and fun. We just got back from the beach a couple weeks ago, so forgive me. I think most of everything is set in stone as far as the syllabus, but if there is a change or two, like we'll go with the flow and figure it out. So that's big life change for me recently. And then other than that, like as far as teaching, I got most of my teaching experience in the doc program. I did teach at Penn West, like co-teach the skills class. So that was something that I did a while ago. But yeah, I mean, I've taught a couple practicum courses at Duquesne. That's a school that I go to, and then also at Penn West, I taught two practicum courses over the summer. So I'm really excited to do this. This is my first course where I'm going to be able to talk a little bit more about theory and the history, which I find really interesting, really helpful to position ourselves in the world of counseling and to know who we are, right? Which also might tell us a little bit about where we're headed. So just with that brief intro, I've a lot more that we'll be able to discuss throughout class and things like that. Why don't we get into the syllabus just in case some folks can't make it tomorrow? So let me share my screen here. Okay, cool. So let me pull this up. You might have seen me and my wife there. No big deal. Um, so as far as the syllabus goes, this is going to be, professional orientation, obviously in clinical mental health counseling. Um, it's COUN 7200, section 403. And then this is me. Feel free to email me or call me if you need anything. Um, I will try to email within a day at least. So definitely expect that. Obviously, I mean, text definitely more preferred for an emergency, but it do not feel weird. If you really need something and you feel like email's not getting the job done, or you just can't log into your email, please feel free to text me. It's not that real. My office hours will be 7 to 9, so I will always be available at that time unless I tell you otherwise, in which case I would definitely provide other office hours for that week. But we are also going to meet 7 to 8. And I did put that, I think, down lower in the syllabus. But, if anybody wants to pop in, I'll just be like online 7 to 8. If I don't see anybody that day, I'll probably just turn my camera off or just be paying attention to my phone. Um, but typically, if there's somebody in there on Mondays, I'd like to just have that hour of interaction, especially being asynchronous, try to just foster some communication between everybody. Yeah, when it comes to description, I'm not going to read all this stuff for you guys because I think you can kind of go through some of this on your own, but just to talk about it in general, it is to understand theoretical and applied information. It's going to have to do with history, professional identity, ethics, the practice of clinical mental health counseling. And with that said, you're going to be identifying the roles and responsibilities, the types of settings, counselor wellness, interdisciplinary collaboration, some stuff about KCREP standards, certification, licensure. So there's a lot of general topics. I mean, I'm hoping after you get through this course, you have a sense of where you are, where kind of who you are is in terms of the helping professions, being able to understand your role versus maybe somebody else's, like a psychiatrist, social worker, etc. And a lot of that we even start off with kind of heavy hitting in the first chapter, just as far as establishing that identity. No real prerequisites. I have 48 hours here, but like I said, I'll try to respond within 24 hours. But I do think the on the weekends, maybe a little bit more laggy, right? I might get back to you a little bit later. Some of the stuff I have in here, but it's not necessarily set in stone. But I will try to respond as quick as I can. Weekends might just be a little bit more late. And so, like I said, it will be 100% online. You're not going to be expected to come to any 7 to 8 meeting. The only thing I do want to say, I might be thinking of another course. I think we're good here as far as work that you might have to do with peers, but I'll come out and say it here. Obviously, you might have to work or collaborate with people. So, I mean, and I hope you do to a degree, depending on what we're talking about and in what way. But this will be completely online for the most part. This textbook is required for this course. That's one thing. I know sometimes during classes you can kind of get away with not getting the textbook. I think this is really important here, and I think that for a couple reasons. One, I think the organization and the subject matter in the textbook is really helpful for actually learning the material. I think if you read this book, you will understand the foundations of clinical mental health counseling. I think a lot of times people skip over stuff like this, and then they really don't know things that they would have liked to know. So, I'm not saying that every sentence in this book is going to be critical to know, but I certainly think this is valuable. And in addition to me saying something, I would like you to actually have another opinion. Even though I'm reading from the book and taking most of my information from the book, and of course, other sources that I'm familiar with, I like you to have this as kind of like a reassurance. Like it's not just Nico saying something, right? So that's definitely required. Um, these are just like supplemental materials there. And I may also post some other readings from time to time. I think with me right now, my current style of teaching, my current kind of level, even in my development as an adjunct professor, I would say that a lot of times I'll probably post like articles in an optional sense. I don't know that I'm going to make a bunch required necessarily. I certainly will advocate for you to read articles, and I really would like for you to search articles up on your own. I'll probably talk about that a lot. I think sometimes as we're going through our master's degree, we can like underestimate our ability to just like get on there and look up articles and how helpful they are. I mean, one article could have a lit review that could change your whole perspective on something, right? Maybe it's more like an intro because it's an article, not as lengthy as like a whole literature review, but the mini lit reviews are very helpful. And I just want to get you in the habit and encourage you because you're totally capable. You don't have to have a doctorate to be looking at research articles. So just encouraging you there. But yeah, as far as the learning objectives, right, demonstrate understanding of the profession, demonstrate understanding of the history and philosophical issues germane to the field, understand counselor roles. Like I said, we kind of went over this. I think becoming familiar with local, state, national professional organizations can be important. That's kind of slept on a lot of times. People don't necessarily ever get to go to a conference or anything like that. Would highly encourage you to do that. I'm going to be talking about that within the course. Talking about different things like the roles and settings of addiction counselors, potential for addictive and substance use disorders, um, major theoretical positions. So, like once again, just a lot of the things that you would expect to learn with clinical mental health counseling, right? Here are just some more of kind of like the outcomes and um, the standards. So you guys can look at that on your own time. So here's really going to be the grade breakdown. And the syllabus should correspond well with this. If there's any errors, please let me know because I'd like to handle those as quick as possible so you guys know what to expect and that you feel like everything's laid out clearly. So as far as participation in discussion board introductions, like that's just literally your intro. That's actually the main thing that you're going to have to do this week. And that's just going to be 5 points. Then you will have weekly discussion board posts. That'll be 130 points. The chapter assignments, reflection papers, you do have about 11 of those. So that'll be about 110 points. I'm not going to keep reading that. I'm just going to read the names of the assignments. You also have a professional interview and presentation. So you will interview other people in the field and then you will give a presentation on that. You also pick a journal article to review. Um, I do want you to try to have some type of involvement in a professional organization since that's a big part of this course. Really, I think too, so a lot of times we just have you kind of join it and maybe send something in as proof. I would also, I might change that a little bit just to have you guys do a bit more research. Nothing crazy, but just looking into something that you think could be valuable about it. I like to hear more, even if we just did that as like some type of informal submission somewhere somehow. I don't know, a discussion, or if you just email me, I'll have to think on that one a little bit more. And then lastly, like your professional counselor identity paper, right? Which in a way is a culmination of like all the different things that you learned in this course. So there's the grading scale. I think we'll be pretty clear on points and grades. Shouldn't be nothing too crazy there. So yeah, for your introduction assignment, I've already posted that in the discussion board. This is basically just telling you how to do it. I think most of you know how to do it. If you don't, definitely let me know. I kind of want to just finish this succinctly here. I don't want to kind of jump around too much with stuff like that because I think we'll be able to figure that out. But this does give you the instructions if you're unsure. Now, for the discussion boards, and please let me know because I had to change some things around. Dates are different sometimes. But for the discussion boards, what I wanted you guys to do is to make your initial post on Wednesday. And then actually, I already have an error here. I actually wanted this to be Friday. So you're going to make your initial post on Wednesday, and then I wanted you to follow up on Friday. And the reason for that is because when you guys have an assignment due, I'm going to want them to be due on Sundays. So it just helps you line that up in a linear way, right? Like I know my initial post is Wednesday, responding to my colleagues is on Friday, assignments on Sunday. Now that can leave, it can be a little bit weird because it can leave you less time than if I made them on Sundays. But I think anytime you have an assignment on a Sunday, it'll be nice to have that whole week to do it. So that was kind of my logic there. I mean, we can discuss that. I'm also very open to allowing you guys to have a little bit more time as long as you communicate and it's not crazy. Like it's not every single time. So we could talk about that. It might need to be changed, if we need to there. So yeah, I think I thought I had changed this here, but I must have changed this only in my career syllabus, but it's fine. We'll just alter it here and then I'll just resend it out. But yeah, I mean, feel free to go back and forth with each other. I'm not going to respond to every single one. I think that can get a little bit crazy, but I will be putting feedback like on your papers and stuff like that. So we will have some more specific discussion around that, but I definitely will read them and I definitely will check them. So, please don't use ChatGPT or anything like that because I will read them. And I mean that in a good way, not like a just policing you away. Just want to hear what you have to say. So like we said, yeah, if your intro is due Wednesday, chapter 1, initial post response is due Wednesday, September 2nd. And then your classmates, I still have Sunday here. I'm going to put Friday. So I'll change that to like the 4th, right? So that's just going to be 2 days later. Okay. And then same thing with the chapter assignments, right? And this is what I mean. This is what will be due Sunday. So each chapter has an associated assignment. Students will write 11 personal reflection papers or a chapter assignment task. They will be mixed up to a degree. I will usually have them be 2 to 5 pages in length. Guys, I'm really open to talking about that throughout the semester. I mean, if it seems like a lot of people, if 2 is too many on certain assignments or something like that, we could always talk about it and negotiate. I think 2 is really not that bad. I think people could really bang out too, especially considering that I'm not expecting every sentence to have a research citation. So I mean, there can be a certain amount of reflection in a paper, even if it is more assignment based, you know. So I think based on that, two's probably okay, but it's not the end of the world. Just talk with me about it. I will provide the prompts though. Yeah, I don't expect you to just be like, even if you're reflecting, I don't expect you to just come up with it on your own. Um, and I would like it to be APA style, a cover page and a reference page. And I will try to help you with that, but I will say there's good YouTube videos. I mean, you should be able to find that. I could try to post one as well. Okay, and then for the professional interview and presentation, we will talk about this, but basically, you're going to conduct an interview with two individuals, each with a graduate degree, employed as either a licensed or non-licensed clinical mental health counselor slash professional. And then you're going to get different information just regarding their credentials, career path, job expectations. I'm not going to read everything out there. And then you're also going to pick an issue or an area of interest to further explore with the two counselors. So, maybe you're going to do private practice, or an agency. Maybe you're going to do like urban or rural. Maybe you're going to look into some other specialty areas, group or individual counseling. So I think the nice thing about this is that if you only did your internship and you never talked to any other professionals, all you're kind of aware of is your little niche, your little world. So this gives you a bit more exposure, gives you some potential other ideas of where you might look to work or stuff that you're interested in. And then you will be required to present your findings to the virtual online class in a PowerPoint. We'll put it on a discussion board. And it's basically a summary, talking about the two different settings. Um, and the presentation should be like 15 to 30 slides in length. I'm okay with more. I wouldn't say I want any less. I think less would be a little bit too short, especially with all that information. Um, and then, yeah, you'll just record the audio and put links as needed. Okay. Some of the stuff you can just read through there. It's just a little bit extra information. Um, yeah, I mean, I do want you to try to interview somebody that you don't know. And the reason is because it is exposure. It's like, well, what if I already know two people in the field? It's like, well, you already know them. I mean, try to get somebody else's perspective. I know it's a little bit annoying, but it's good to get outside of your comfort zone, right? Like, I mean, you're here for that. So if anything, I think it's a good idea just to push yourself, and it won't be that hard nonetheless. So moving on to the journal article review, students will write a 3 to 5 page paper integrating research findings related to a specific area of interest in clinical mental health counseling. I'm very much open to you guys picking whatever topic you want. I think the main thing is just trying to make sure that it is within the counseling field. This is going to help you guys really get into the habit of looking at research, trying to figure out whether this topic is relevant to counseling. I remember one of my first times I was trying to get a paper and together for the program when I was in my master's degree, and I remember having a conversation with one of the professors, and it was like, "Is this even like counseling?" And it turned out that it was related, but it really helped me right there to understand about professional identity and the importance, where it's like, well, how do I justify this research assignment? And I think the short area answer to that is just looking in journals that are within the field. And if you don't know those journals, I'm going to tell you about those journals. So that'll help you because you can literally look in the journal for your topic. If you have anything related in there, first of all, you'll read that article and see what they recommend, but then maybe you could also make a case for it just for the purpose of this class. So yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be pretty straightforward. Do want you to have a minimum of 3 peer-reviewed articles from 2010 or later. I might even bump that up a bit. It kind of depends. I don't want to limit you too much, but it is good to have some recent articles in, right? If you're trying to justify studying a topic right now, but for the purpose of this assignment, we might not be too crazy about it. We'll see. And then papers should be 3 to 5 pages in length. I mean, for this assignment particularly, I think it's just one of the ones that might be a bit longer. I don't think that one's likely to change because I also, once again, think that there's a lot that you can put in it that it's going to be reflection and stuff that could potentially make the paper a little bit larger too. So, I just think that's fair is what I'm getting at. Not that you just need to reflect. If you have a lot of stuff that you want to put in from journal articles, that'll be great. And then, yeah, so the involvement in professional organization, you're going to provide documentation of membership in a professional organization, germane to clinical mental health counseling. Like I said, maybe I'd like to maybe probably have you say a little bit more about that. I might change that one. But it's not going to be anything crazy. It could even be something that we just add to like a discussion post. And then lastly, for the professional counselor identity paper, like I said, it's going to be a culmination, a synthesis of the assignments, readings, and class experiences. It's really going to discuss your definition kind of your emerging professional identity, counseling philosophy, and how that's going to pertain to your specialty area, right? Like how the way you view things is related to clinical mental health counseling. Um, so everything that I just said is really going to repeat that. I think some of the questions to ask yourself, like how does my view of human nature affect counseling theories that I choose to incorporate? What counseling theories am I drawn to? How do they relate to my specialty area? Does this research support using these counseling approaches in my specialty area? So a lot of these are going to be, straight up based on the chapters that we read. We've already done discussion posts, talked about this. You've read some of your peers' responses. So, I mean, I don't want you to think that anything is going to be overly difficult. It's really about the intention. I think it's pretty clear if you put intention and you tried and you cared about it versus um, just basically checking a box. So, I think as long as you're putting something into it, and I mean, it's based on a rubric at the end of the day. So, you should be fine. I don't think it's going to be like you didn't say this one critical thing that I expected you to say. For this type of assignment, that's not necessarily what I'm looking for. So yeah, even like I said, some of the criteria for evaluation is like demonstrating in-depth critical evaluation of self and professional development, understanding of counseling field and specialty area, right? You're definitely going to know that stuff going through this course. So not too worried there. And so, yeah, now this is the first time that I am teaching an asynchronous online course. So admittedly, it's possible that there's an error in here. Please don't worry. We will immediately take care of that. Let me know ASAP. For this first week, all you're going to have is the introduction due. So I already have chapter one recorded. So I will make sure that all that stuff is up for next week. But all you have to do this week is really log on. I just want to make sure everybody is familiar with D2L if for some reason people aren't. So this first week is really chill, and then we'll get right into work. We will even have a chapter assignment that next week. So I will try to always be at least a week ahead. My goal is really to be way ahead as soon as I can be super ahead. But right now I'll just be a week ahead so that for people that want to work ahead, I think it will be fine to get your discussion post out there for the following week. I'm okay with that, and I'll try to set it up in such a way that you can. But other than that, I think even with assignments, I'll probably only want you to be like a week ahead. If you're really that diligent and you're the type that needs to get something done, I would prefer like a reason if it was closer to the end of the course, like maybe you have vacation or something for some reason, even though it's the fall, that might not be as prominent. If somebody was leaving for like the holidays in December, just talk with me about it and I can maybe try to get something out there earlier or open a Dropbox. But I think for right now, about a week ahead should be good. So yeah, all you have to do for this week coming up is just your discussion board intro. If you want to come to the meet and greet, feel free to come to that. Um, I will send out an announcement just in case there are any tripped up areas in the syllabus that need fixed. So yeah, I think that's basically it for now. Um, I do have Thanksgiving break in there. I think that's the biggest break that I'm aware of that we're going to have. I don't know that we're going to have any other breaks other than that. So we'll kind of deal with that as we go. But yeah, as you can see, the format is the discussion board. I try to have these two boxes here so you guys think to yourself, okay, submission, response to peers, and then assignment. Like I said, it should be, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, right? Just broken up in that format. So we'll see if that works out well there. And yeah, just keep in mind, as of right now, the final paper is due on the 11th. I'm going to check with some people in the department, just make sure that I picked the right date from that. But for my estimation, the grades are due the 15th. So that would give me enough time. I might bump it up a little bit just in case. But like I said, that's going to be emerging and we'll be around that date, give or take for sure. Um, as far as attendance, students really should log on regularly. That's a big part of the course, right? I mean, if people aren't coming for class, you should be logging in. We can see like, how often that you're logging in and participating to a degree. Students who do not actively log on and participate may have their grade lower by half a grade. So like, I mean, if you're like not logging in at all, you're turning in assignments late. Um, that might even be a conversation. I'm not expecting anybody to do that, but like just stating here now, it is a problem if you're not logging in at all, or maybe even just once the whole week. I mean, if you think we have Mondays is when stuff's going to come out and be available to you to read. Wednesday, you're doing a submission. Friday, you should be responding to people, unless you're doing everything Wednesday. But technically, depending on when you post, everybody might not have posted by then. And then Sunday, a lot of times you're going to have assignments. So it's not like a mandatory 4 times, but you really should be logging in. You should be checking on something, like referring back to something. So if you're signing in like once or less, that's definitely going to be an issue. So I just kind of want to put that out there now. It's something that we'll need to discuss. Um, I do think it's a good idea to have the readings completed before class, right? If you read that and understand it yourself, then when you're going through my lecture, which is going to be, anywhere probably between like 20 to 45 minutes, it depends on the material that we're going over. I know my first lecture was probably about 40. Um, so, I think that's going to help you so much. If you listen to mine and read the text, it might do the same thing. Um, but I think what I'm going to talk about will distill it down to what you really need to know. And I think you reading the chapter will have you feeling pretty confident. And then you can also evaluate what I'm saying based off that as well. And then, yeah, obviously, I mean, your participation does matter. We have that in kind of like the general assignments. So we will take that into account. Once again, just doing thoughtful responses to your peers, things like that. And then, yeah, for the late work policy, something that I want to be clear. I am very flexible if you give me a notice and you have a reason. Um, if it happens all the time, it might be a conversation because I just want you to realize, like, sometimes in the real world, it can get sticky when you do need an extension or something like that. It is easy to make an excuse for it, but I just want to help you guys strengthen your professional development, right? I don't want you to get into a bad habit. So I don't want to do a disservice to you by also making that too easy. So there will be a reduction 5% each day that it's late. A lot of times, once again, I mean, I could see if you have something going on and it's really not a big excuse and you take a hit on a percent, like it can happen. Um, so I think 5% is reasonable because it's not the end of the world, but just don't abuse it. Take that as an opportunity if you need it. Sometimes you need to rest. Sometimes life comes up and you might be like, well, this probably isn't enough of a thing to ask for an extension, or I already asked for an extension, so it's going to be 5% after the time I asked for an extension. That's totally up to you. Not going to look down on you or try to make you feel bad for it. Just I hope that if that time were to come, just that people accept their 5% loss per day. That's all. And then, yeah, I try to make this accurate, guys. I think there's going to be changes in the course syllabus. I mean, just being transparent, with it being my first time teaching an asynchronous course, I think there's going to be stuff that comes up. Um, so it's subject to change, right? And then, yeah, a lot of this other stuff, I think is stuff that you guys know from school in general, but some of it you may not. So, like, as far as generally like safe and productive educational environment, like that's kind of the basics that I'm thinking you guys know there. But then as far as if there's anything regarding sexual violence or anything like that, um there are different contacts that we have to talk with, and please know that I will be required to report those type of things. So if you guys ever need to reach out to somebody to talk to any about any kind of like sexual violence or anything like that, we do have contacts that you can reach. And just know that I will, in general, mandated reporter fashion, if you guys aren't aware of that. I will be obligated to report any sexual violence or any other abuse of a student who was or is a child, a person under 18 years of age, when the abuse allegedly occurred to the person designated in the university's protection and supervision of minors on campus policy. So just want you guys to know that similar conversation that you'll have with your clients. Um, and yeah, I mean, if guys, if you have any accommodations, please come talk with me ASAP so that I know and I can, try to help out. I have no problem working and figuring out whatever you guys may need to help you succeed in this course. So please don't feel any type of way. I'm a little bit newer with, maybe navigating some of it. So it might, take me a second depending on what you need, but we will absolutely meet that requirement and figure it out ASAP. And then, yeah, I mean, as far as academic integrity, I think it's pretty, simple. Like you got to submit original work. It's all going to be screened for plagiarism and things like that. As far as ChatGPT, yeah, I mean, you really shouldn't be using that. You really shouldn't need it. You're reading the chapter that day, and you're going to definitely have something to say for the discussion post. Um, I don't think anything should be that difficult that you really even need a reference other than the book. Although, like I said, I'm going to encourage you sometimes for an assignment or something like that. There's really no need to do any of that. And then if you do need some type of like prolonged absence, please have a medical reason and communicate that immediately. It definitely would not be appropriate just because it's an online course to completely not turn in anything for a week and then come back and say that something happened, right? Because it's hard for me to assume what's going on in that case and to not just like deduct your points, obviously within reason. So please try to let me know as soon as possible if anything like that were to come up. Other than that, we just have the bibliography. So, like I said, for this week, you're basically just going to be working with the introduction, get familiar with the course. I'll try to make sure that the following week is out, and then I'll always try to be a week ahead so that you guys can work ahead on the discussion post. I'm pretty sure I'll allow you to do the assignments a week ahead if you want, not a requirement that you do. So, yeah, just let me know if you have any questions in the meantime. Feel free to come tomorrow. 7 to 8. And also, like, I'll be there 8 to 9 too. So, yeah, good to meet all of you. Actually meet you soon. And just reach out if you need anything.